The emperor accidentally hit his head and lost all memory of me. When I rushed to the hall of diligent governance, I heard him shouting at my father in an agitated tone, "I actually made the daughter of an old fox like you my empress. Absolutely impossible. No, I must depose the empress." I held back my tears and walked in. He stared at me, gasping in shock. "This is perfect. I shall make her my empress." Me, who had already become the empress. What? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. I rushed to the hall of diligent governance and heard my father and Li Jingye arguing inside. In all my life, I had never seen my father so angry. "I told you not to perform a backflip, but you just wouldn't listen. You insisted. Now look what happened. You've flipped yourself into a fool. You still want to use this trick to coax." Li Jingye sat on the dragon throne. A fresh red mark still visible on his forehead from the kowtow. After a dazed moment, he came to his senses and cut off my father's words. "Me, the son of heaven, performing a backflip for you, the prime minister. Who would believe it if word got out?" My father gave him an annoyed glance. "Indeed. No one would dare believe it, yet you dared to do it. If I hadn't stopped you, you would have even planned to kowtow to me." Li Jingye widened his eyes, his face full of disbelief. "Why don't you just say you're my own father?" My father was silent for a few seconds. "I'm not your biological father. At most I'm your father-in-law." Upon hearing this, Li Jingye's first reaction was, "Guards, throw this fraud, no, this lunatic out of the hall of diligent governance." The eunuchs nearby quickly knelt down, their voices trembling as they tried to stop him. "Your Majesty, the Prime Minister is indeed the Empress's father. Have you forgotten everything?" Li Jingye exploded in anger. "How could I have possibly made the daughter of that old fox the Empress? Did he force me into it? Wait, since when do I have an Empress?" As soon as these words were spoken, my father was so angry that the few remaining hairs of his beard stood on end, and he began to speak sarcastically. "I wonder who it is. I refused to marry my daughter to him, so he brings the censor to perform chest-crushing stone in front of me every day. Ha! And he calls himself the son of heaven. If this country is still standing, it's only because the late emperor laid a solid foundation." Li Jingye still didn't believe it. "Are you still holding a grudge from when I cut off your beard and glued it to your bald head as a child? To think you'd make your daughter my empress? No, I will depose her." The moment I heard him say depose the empress, my steps faltered as I entered the hall. The gilded hairpin in my hair trembled and chimed softly due to my composure slipping, as if voicing my protest on my behalf. The worries that had been clogging my heart all turned into grievances, surging up to my eyes. Tears fell silently, like pearls from a broken string. My disheveled appearance happened to catch the eyes of Li Jingye, who looked up at the sound. The vast palace fell silent for a moment, then echoed with the sound of his sharp intake of breath. He stared at me intently. His usually inscrutable eyes, which he showed to the court officials, were wide open. That look was somewhat like when he saw the freshly grilled lamb, steaming and sizzling with hot oil, just brought to the table from the imperial kitchen, bright and unwavering. His handsome and imposing face now carried a hint of foolishness. Just as my father was about to flare up with anger, his mustache bristling, ready to continue his rant. Li Jingye suddenly slapped the armrest of the dragon throne and declared loudly, "This is excellent. I shall make her my empress." Me, what? To this, my father had only one thing to say. The late empress foundation was laid too solidly. I stood there for a few seconds, lost in thought, trying to follow Li Jingye's train of thought. "Appoint me as the empress." He nodded earnestly and with conviction. Then, upon hearing how I referred to myself, he realized, "Which consort of my harem are you?" "That's not right. Do I even have any consorts in my harem?" I saw the unfamiliarity in Li Jingye's eyes when he looked at me, and the pent-up tears slowly welled up in my eyes again. They were on the verge of falling. Li Jingye panicked. "Don't cry. Didn't I say you'll be the empress? That's a good thing." My father spoke up quietly from the side. "Thank you, Your Majesty, but my daughter has been the empress for a year now. There's no need for you to trouble yourself with another coronation." Upon hearing this, Li Jingye's pupils trembled in shock, his gaze fixed intently on me. "You are my empress." With teary eyes, I looked up, a single tear hanging perfectly on the edge of my lashes. poised to fall but not yet dropping, the former empress. My father coldly corrected his wording. Li Jingye choked back, wanting to say something to explain to me, but he was interrupted by the physicians who came rushing over in a panic. The physicians, combining the small wound and the symptoms, frowned deeply and conducted a thorough diagnosis. I don't know how long the silence lasted before they reached a conclusion. The sacred body is in turmoil, causing a reversal of qi and blood. We propose to administer. Further rest is needed to observe the effects. Translated, it means, Li Jingye has lost his memory, a memory loss that only targets me. The imperial physicians, seeing the situation was not right, wiped their cold sweat and hastily withdrew after receiving my permission. My father looked at me with concern, hesitating to speak. I shook my head at him. He sighed and slowly moved away. I never expected such a mysterious thing to happen to Li Jingye. He was still secretly glancing at me. His eyes were filled with unfamiliarity, curiosity, and a trace of excitement that he himself hadn't even realized. I have never seen Li Jingye so emotionally exposed. In the year we've been married, he has always maintained the dignity and aloofness of an emperor in front of me, treating me with respect but keeping his distance. When I took the initiative to help him change his clothes, he immediately recoiled, stepping 3 meters away from me. Calling him husband made him instantly avert his eyes and stop me. I smiled at him, but he just stared at me without saying a word. Later, I unilaterally gave him the cold shoulder. Li Jingye, perhaps having never been treated this way before, grew furious and coldly practiced his swordplay in front of me. After finishing, he asked if I was still angry. I'm the kind of person who responds better to kindness than force, and I felt he was threatening me, so I wanted even less to do with him. Then, I heard him mutter under his breath that my father was an old fox who had tricked him again. All signs pointed to the fact that he really didn't like me. He only married me to win over my father and secure his absolute power in the court. So seeing this Li Jingye before me, who becomes flustered by a single tear of mine, the grievance in my heart is replaced by a more novel emotion. It's like suddenly picking up a rare thing on the road that can perform backflips on its own, a bit amusing, and a bit itchy-handed and wanting to tease. I raised my hand and gently pressed a handkerchief to the slightly reddened corner of my eye. So that's how it is. Your Majesty's health is of utmost importance. If you've lost your memory, then so be it. Li Jingye's eyes lit up. You don't blame me. I lowered my gaze, my voice tinged with just the right amount of a sob. Blame? Why would I blame you, Your Majesty? You merely bumped your head and forgot some insignificant people and matters. The imperial physician said rest is all that's needed. I deliberately emphasized the words insignificant. His handsome brows furrowed into a tight knot. On that handsome face, which seemed especially innocent after the memory loss, was written all over with guilt and unease. This definitely wasn't my intention. He looked at me, his tone softening. Empress, give me some time, I will surely remember you. I lifted my damp eyelashes. Does the emperor not speak in jest? The emperor does not speak in jest. I gave him a faint smile, my red lips slightly pursed, revealing a dimpled grin, my smiling eyes curved like crescents. Li Jingye looked at my smile and once again fell silent. A sudden guess crossed my mind. He was staring at me, wasn't he? Back at Fengyi Palace, my personal maid Fengye, while helping me remove the heavy headdress, looked at me in the mirror with concern. Your Highness, the emperor has always been diligent and rarely visits the inner palace. She carefully chose her words, avoiding the term cold. Now that he has lost his memory of you, will it be even more? She didn't finish. I know what was left unsaid. In the past, Fengye's worries were not unfounded, but now, as night fell, I held a soft pillow and pushed open the door to the chamber east of the Hall of Diligent Governance. The flickering candlelight stretched the side profile of Li Jingye as he bent over reviewing memorials. Your Majesty. My voice was as gentle as a mountain stream, murmuring and pleasing to the ear. It's late, time to retire. The tone was so natural, as if I often reminded him this way. Li Jingye's hand holding the vermilion brush paused, and a plump drop of cinnabar fell onto the desk, spreading into a small, glaring patch of red. He looked up in astonishment, meeting my smiling eyes. Go to bed, you and I, tonight. Yes, I gently placed the soft pillow on the inner side of the bed. Your Majesty, you've lost your memory and don't remember, but every night you sleep with me, saying that only this way can you rest peacefully. I approached him. The tips of my embroidered shoes nearly touching his dragon-patterned boots. I lifted my eyes, looked at him, and said, word by word, you said that with your own mouth. Li Jingye was dumbfounded. The harder he tried to recall, the more confused his expression became. Would I say such a thing? His voice trembled as he questioned himself. No, I answered him silently in my heart. My expression remained unchanged as I gently smoothed the wrinkles on his lapel with my sleeve, my fingertips brushing lightly over his Adam's apple. Not only that, but you always love to hold me while we sleep. The more lies are told, the smoother they become. Upon hearing this, Li Jingye's pupils first contracted sharply, as if he had heard some outlandish tale. Then, that shock quickly turned into an unbelievable sense of shame and embarrassment. His strikingly handsome face flushed crimson in an instant, the redness spreading all the way to his ears, neck, and nape. Holding you to sleep. Li Jingye seemed to have scalded his tongue with his own words, his voice cracking, the tail end trembling with disbelief. I actually did something he said for a long time, as if unable to find a word that could both preserve the dignity of an emperor and accurately describe his own reckless behavior. I could only force out 4 words through gritted teeth. How utterly improper. Does your Majesty find this improper? I tilted my head slightly. My limpid eyes filled with confusion, my fingertips lightly brushing over his tightly clenched fist. But this is the most ordinary intimacy between a husband and wife. I leaned in close to him, so close that our breaths intertwined. I could even see, beneath his thick lashes, the pupils slightly widened in shock, clearly reflecting my image, distant mountain-like brows, autumn water-bright eyes, a delicate nose, and lips like newly bloomed cherry petals. The candlestick suddenly burst with a flower of flame, the faint sound startling Li Jingye back to his senses. He hastily retreated 3 steps. With a rustling sound, the pile of memorials by the desk was swept to the ground by his wide sleeve. I watched as the distance between the two of them widened, lowering my eyelids. I let out a soft sigh, my long lashes casting a small shadow beneath my eyes. Does your Majesty no longer even wish to let me touch you? My voice was full of disappointment. Li Jingye looked at the mess on the floor, averted his gaze, but then caught sight of my aggrieved expression, his Adam's apple bobbing violently. Empress, that's not what I meant. Don't overthink it. It's just that I need some time to process it all and adjust. How long is some time? I pressed further. 10 days. Li Jingye asked tentatively. I pressed my lips together, gazing at him with misty eyes, saying nothing. I looked utterly pitiful and endearing. He couldn't hold out for even 5 seconds, his eyes pleading with me. 5 days. Is that okay? However, with my efforts, in less than 5 days, Li Jingye had completely adapted to my presence. Fengye witnessed the entire process and once again worriedly advised me, Your Majesty, please be careful. The things you've coaxed the Emperor into doing these past few days, when His Majesty regains his memory, will be in big trouble. I looked completely innocent and retorted, Have I done anything that outrageous? Maple leaves are listed one by one. You said you love the almond curd made by the Emperor the most, and that it's delicious. The Emperor believed it and burned down the imperial kitchen to make 2 pieces for you. 2 pieces of black, burnt almond curd were made. Li Jingye even leaned in closer, his eyes full of anticipation as he asked me, Is it delicious? I was caught in a dilemma, unsure whether to swallow or not. That time was my miscalculation. I ended up hurting myself. You kept coaxing the Emperor into revealing whose portrait he had hidden in the secret compartment. After the Emperor found out, he searched every possible location in the side chamber where the secret compartment might be, just to find the answer for you. I sighed in disappointment. But he didn't find it, did he? Then you told the Emperor that he is madly in love with you, that he can't bear to be apart from you for even a moment, and that he insisted on bringing you along even for a hunting trip. What is this all about? I looked toward the man not far away, riding high on his horse, full of vigor and confidence. I wanted to go out for a walk, so I mentioned it to him. Upon hearing my words, Fengye was utterly bewildered. I couldn't win the argument with her. There was no other way. She's on my side, so she had to back me up. She quickly walked up to Li Jingye and told a bold-faced lie. Your Majesty, Her Highness said you missed her. She pointed to my seat. Li Jingye listened in a daze. Oh, okay. I'll be right there. According to the plan between Maple Leaf and me, once Li Jingye arrived, we would continue feeding him the narrative that he was deeply in love with me. For example, I was forcibly taken into the palace by him. I didn't love him at first, but he loved me so much. Another example, I originally had a childhood sweetheart, but because he was the emperor, a single imperial decree forced us apart. From then on, once I entered the palace gates, it felt like plunging into an unfathomable sea, so he has to treat me even better to make it up to me. Qing Yuan, long time no see. A familiar male voice interrupted my train of thought. The tone was gentle, extremely pleasant to the ear. I looked up and my vision went dark. Why was the childhood friend who should have appeared in the script here? Who is Qing Yuan? My dear subject, who are you calling for? Li Jingye rode over on his horse, encircling me within his reach, and asked in confusion upon hearing Lin Xuyen's words. Qing Yuan is my courtesy name, but I didn't say it. Right now, this isn't the right time to say it. Let's see who's bold enough to step forward and speak the truth. My father charged over like a horse galloping on a swallow, shouting at Li Jingye. Just say it, are you thinking of deposing my daughter again? Li Jingye, me. I suddenly became very curious. Is the position of Prime Minister given to whoever has the hardest head? Li Jingye dismounted and walked to my side, loosely encircling me with his arm. The person who had been acting very shy in front of me suddenly had a sharp glint in his eyes upon hearing my father's words, from top to bottom. He gave Lin Shuyang a sweeping glance. Do you know my empress? He didn't even call him my dear minister anymore. The atmosphere grew tense. I spoke up to break the silence. Your Majesty, aside from you, everyone else here knows me. Li Jingye's previously straightened spine instantly slumped a little, and his imposing manner diminished. Her eyes met Fengye's, and she instantly understood my meaning. Clear the room, the show begins, Li Jingye said indignantly. I have never called you by your courtesy name. How dare he address you so directly? Hearing the tone of blame in his voice, my tears fell one by one, filled with grievance. Hey, Empress, no, Qing Yuan, I didn't mean to blame you. Please don't cry. I've made a significant discovery these past few days. Whenever I cry, Li Jingye's toughest temper instantly softens. I have overstepped my bounds. Lin Shuyang averted his gaze from me and bowed to Li Jingye in salute. I wiped away my tears, signaled Fengye to help him up, and gently explained to Li Jingye, he is my sworn brother. It's been a long time since we last met, so it's only natural to get a bit carried away and forget formalities. Li Jingye didn't believe my explanation and continued to eye Lin Shuyang with suspicion, but I didn't want him lingering in front of me for a second longer. Suppressing his jealousy, he waved at Lin Shuyang, signaling him to leave. Don't stay here and be an eyesore to him. I stopped him. With a gentle expression, it's not easy to see my sworn brother, so I must stay and catch up. Li Jingye was furious. I shed a few tears. He agreed. On the way to the banquet pavilion, an urgent report from the previous court arrived, and Li Jingye left temporarily with my father, leaving me and Lin Shuyang. You little rascal, using me again. A gentle yet resonant voice came from beside me. I smiled, glanced sideways at Lin Shuyang, and softly retorted, haven't you used me enough in the past? Brother, don't worry, I won't ask for free. If it works, I'll beg the emperor to promote you and grant you a higher position. Don't be fooled by Lin Xuyen's gentle and scholarly appearance on the surface. His core is pitch black. He looked at me for a long time, then chuckled softly. Then I'll thank you, little sister. You're welcome. By the time we leisurely arrived at the banquet, Li Jingye was already seated at the head of the table. Qing Yuan, my father-in-law and I have been waiting here for nearly the time it takes to finish a cup of tea. It seems you and him were having quite a pleasant conversation. I had just sat down when Li Jingye's ambiguous words came over. Following his lead, I nodded and said, yes, quite happy. Li Jingye gave me a resentful look, but I was too engrossed in listening to the interesting stories Lin Shuyang was telling about outside the palace to notice. So, because of my neglect, Li Jingye got angry with me. It was the first time since he lost his memory. By the time I realized it, it was already too late. Not being good at comforting people, I brought a dish to Li Jingye. Your Majesty, this dish is your favorite. He snorted coldly. I don't like this anymore, see. I'm really not good at coaxing people. Since he said so, I'm going to bring that dish back. Li Jingye, however, pressed down on my hand. Since a moment ago, I no longer liked this dish, didn't you know? Besides, even if I didn't like this dish, you've already given it to me. How can you take it back now? You've hurt my heart like this. Do you think I'll still love you the most from now on? Impossible. I shall love you a little less. Why aren't you speaking? Have you realized your mistake? Very well, I forgive you. Leave the dishes. Forget it. You stay too. Me. What? The entire room fell into dead silence. A moment later, my dad gave me a thumbs up. Lin Xuyen's gaze froze on Li Jingye's hand gripping mine, falling silent. Your Highness, look what you've done to the Emperor. To be honest, I was a bit stunned too. I had only thought that since Li Jingye didn't like this dish now, I would just change it for him. Why did he react so strongly after the banquet? I carefully pondered and reflected on it. Fengye, do you think it's still too late for me to confess now? Fengye, having gotten over the initial shock, remained calm. Which matter would you like to confess? Is it that you've been fooling the Emperor every day into believing he was deeply in love with you before he lost his memory? Or that you've been tricking the Emperor into thinking he must hold you every night to sleep peacefully? Or perhaps, as Maple Leaf listed them one by one, I couldn't help but voice my doubt. Did I really trick you that many times? Yes, Your Highness, you also. Stop. I couldn't listen any longer and interrupted her. Everything. Is there still time to save it now? It's too late. You're so sure. Because the Emperor has come to share your bed. Maple Leaf stepped aside to make way. I followed her movement and glanced out the window. Li Jingye walked in from the outer hall. Holding a pillow, he caught my gaze. His ears tinged red as he shook the soft pillow in his arms at me. Me, forget it. I'll just keep bluffing to the end. The first thing Li Jingye did upon entering the chamber was to place the pillow neatly on the outer side of the bed. He then turned and walked slowly toward me. He took the comb from Fengye's hand and gently, skillfully began to comb my hair. Only the two of us remained in the chamber. I am sitting, he is standing. The comb teeth glide through the black hair, producing a faint sound that amplifies endlessly in the silence. Their gazes meet in the dim, yellowish bronze mirror. For a long moment, he was the first to avert his gaze, exposing the tips of his ears, red as if about to bleed, completely to my view. The alluring crimson spread from the earlobes to the side of his neck, appearing especially fragile under the candlelight. It stirred up my mischief. I suddenly raised my hand without a moment's hesitation. My slender, pale fingers deftly winding around the jade belt at his waist. A tug, mph. His body stiffened, seemingly caught completely off guard by my audacity, forced to stagger a step closer to me. Through the thin nightgown, his warm chest was almost pressing against my back. He instinctively braced himself against the edge of the dressing table to steady his stance. Empress, what are you doing? Li Jingye asked me in a low voice. However, the question sounded utterly lacking in force. Almost like an advance indulgence for my next move, I curved a smile. Take a guess. My gaze slowly traveled upward, lingering on his lips, which were pressed into a tight line from nervousness. My fingers trailed up his chest, climbing over his shoulders, using them for support as I straightened up, almost eye to eye with him as he bent down. I am foolish. His voice deepened slightly, catching where my gaze had fallen. I cannot guess, I chuckled softly. My breath brushing against his slightly warm cheek, clearly seeing his eyelashes tremble in response. Then why is your Majesty holding me so tightly? He faltered for a moment, then spoke in a low, self-assured voice. I am afraid you will run away. As soon as his words fell, I rose slightly on my tiptoes. In his astonished gaze, I gently pressed a kiss to the corner of his lips, a fleeting touch, then parted. Li Jingye froze in place, even forgetting to breathe. Time seemed to stand still in that instant. He stared at me without blinking. His gaze was too intense, too direct, suppressing the flutter in my heart. I feigned innocence and asked, Your Majesty, what's wrong? For a long moment, Li Jingye seemed to have finally found his voice. His Adam's apple bobbing heavily as he asked me, Can I kiss you again? His gaze locked onto me, like a hunter locking onto his prey. He held back his most primal desire. waiting only for my nod, I remained silent. He took it as the default. The next second, his ears tinged with red, yet his palm pressed firmly against the back of my neck, leaving no room for refusal, step by step, closing in, until our breaths intertwined, and he conquered. At first, I was the guide, he was the inexperienced taker. Later, his muscle memory returned, and he gradually got into the swing of things. I became a defeated deserter, trying to evade his pursuit by leaning back. He wouldn't allow it, holding me forward to meet him. Completely and thoroughly invaded by him. Let me go. The blurriness of the trailing sound was all due to his aggression. Her damp eyes were veiled with a mist. It was also because he was doing something wicked. In the end, the villain even begged me with a pitiful look, "Can we kiss a little longer? I haven't had enough." Me, very well, lifting a stone only to drop it on one's own foot. For half a month straight, Li Jingye, covered in bits of meat and grease, would wait for me on the bed as soon as dusk fell, wants to hold hands, wants to embrace, kiss me, even when sleeping, holding me tightly in his arms. I finally found a chance to get away from him, and it seemed like I was about to succeed. He turned around, his long arm reaching out to encircle my waist, pulling me toward him, taking possession of me with absolute dominance. This aggressive posture was something he often adopted before he lost his memory. To the point where I'm now unsure whether he's doing this out of physical instinct or has he started to gradually regain his memory. To set my mind at ease, I summoned the imperial physician to get a clear answer. I asked 5 of them in a row, each one gave me a resolute reply: he has not. The maple leaves also said I was overthinking. If His Majesty really remembered, given his previous temperament, Your Highness, do you think? Yes, if he really remembered. He should have coldly scolded me for making trouble and deceiving the emperor. To keep myself from overthinking, I went to the imperial garden to relax. The flowers were in full bloom, but if I hadn't overheard the conversation between Li Jingye, the Empress Dowager, and her niece, I would have been in a better mood to appreciate them. Your Majesty, you have been deceived by the Empress. She has lied to you. The Empress Dowager's niece, dressed in a bright yellow gown, looked radiant and charming, though her words were far from pleasant. "Oh, then, Princess, tell me, what has the Empress deceived me about?" Li Jingye sat in the pavilion, leisurely sipping his tea and lifting his eyes to glance at her. The aura of the supreme ruler was fully unleashed. Princess Zhao was startled by Li Jingye's gaze, but after glancing at the seated Empress Dowager, she mustered her courage and continued, "Your Majesty, you never liked Yi Qingyuan to begin with. Marrying her back then was only due to circumstances, and now, taking advantage of your amnesia, she dares to toy with and deceive you. This is nothing short of deceiving the sovereign, whereas I, your humble subject, have adored your Majesty since childhood, with nothing but sincere devotion. Qing'er, be careful with your words." The Empress Dowager, who had been silent all along, suddenly spoke. She waved her hand, signaling Princess Zhao to sit back down, then turned her head and looked kindly at Li Jingye. "Your Majesty, do not blame her. Qing'er is a bit spoiled." She then shifted her tone, but she would not tell lies. "The Empress has indeed been somewhat improper in her conduct lately. Does the Empress Dowager also believe that I have been deceived by the Empress? That I am a fool who cannot even discern my own feelings?" Li Jingye retorted. He wore a smile on his face, but there was not a trace of amusement in his eyes. "I did not mean it that way, but the harem is now empty, and the Empress has behaved improperly. It is time to. The Empress has behaved improperly." He slammed the teacup heavily onto the stone table, cutting off the Empress Dowager's words. "How has she behaved improperly?" The spilled tea soaked Li Jingye's hand. His personal attendant hurried forward to wipe it dry, but was waved away by him. Seeing him in such a state, the Empress Dowager's voice also turned cold. "Do you really want me to say outright that you never liked her before your memory loss? Otherwise, why would you forget only her?" Standing at the corner, I heard the Empress Dowager's words, and the light in my eyes gradually dimmed. Yes. How could he have forgotten only me? As my thoughts sank low, Li Jingye over there lowered his gaze, the pressure around him suddenly intensifying. "Who I forget and who I like, what inevitable connection is there between the two?" His voice was not loud, yet it clearly pierced the silence of the pavilion, carrying an undeniable chill. "I find the Empress to be excellent, Li Jingye's resounding words spread through the pavilion, then fell into my ears. Such a rigid reply. I suddenly looked up and met his pitch-black eyes, direct and captivating. I'm certain of it. He has regained his memory, not long after I left in a hurry. Li Jingye also followed. I returned to Fengyi Palace, and he followed me in. Then he strode forward, cornering me in a part of the hall. Empress. He extended the hand that had just been soaked by the tea in front of me. I've been scalded. He lowered his head, his deep eyes fixed intently on me. I glanced down at his hand. His fingers were long and strong, with distinct, well-defined knuckles. The faint blue veins on the back of his hand were slightly raised, and at that moment, they were indeed tinged with an unnatural flush, not to the extent that a cup of lukewarm tea could scald. Probably, he deliberately scalded himself when he just came in. I kept a straight face, raised my eyes, and met his gaze. Has Your Majesty regained his memory? Li Jingye avoided answering and moved his injured hand closer to my eyes. Yuan, my hand hurts. But the way he addressed me had already given the answer. Before Li Jingye lost his memory, he called me Yuan every day. How intimate the call, how distant the behavior in the daylight, like an old-fashioned stickler. When was it? Aren't you really feeling sorry for me? Each speaking their own language, not a single word of communication gets through. I tilted my head slightly, looking directly at him. Yet he leaned in and covered my eyes. Is Yuan trying to settle accounts with me? My world instantly plunged into darkness, leaving only the warmth from his palm. You could say that. I pulled his hand down. I did deceive him quite a bit while he had amnesia, but he also took advantage of me quite a bit, and from the looks of it now, he might have been laughing at me for a while. This score needs to be settled properly. Very well. Li Jingye chuckled softly. Please, Yuan, explain to me first. What do you mean by I forced you into the palace? I tore you and your childhood sweetheart apart. I love you but treat you poorly. I once confined you in Fengyi Palace, sharing the bed every night and being intimate every day. With every word he spoke, he drew a step closer, his warm breath almost brushing against my bangs. Me, bombarded by this series of questions, even though I had mentally prepared myself, I couldn't help but feel my ears grow warm. The facts proved it. Deceiving may bring momentary joy, but it leads to a funeral pyre afterward, especially when deceiving an emperor with a sharp memory and a vengeful, cunning heart. The consequences are severe. Did you enjoy the almond paste I made with my own hands? Someone asked me in a low voice, word by word. It scrapes against my already sensitive nerves. Good, delicious. The voice was so broken it was barely a tune. He pressed down hard, and I tried to comply with him, hoping to buy my freedom. Really? Ah, really? I tilted my neck to avoid the friction, looking at him through tear-blurred eyes, with a pleading look in my eyes. I begged him to loosen his grip a little, but there wasn't. He pressed down even tighter, not leaving the slightest gap. The air was as thick as unmelted honey, and every breath had long been stolen away. The tears that were once used to feign pitifulness were now completely out of control, rolling down in large drops from the corners of my eyes, soaking the pillow. Yuan lied to me again, he murmured, lowering his head as his warm lips brushed over my earlobe, leaving behind a damp, heated accusation. I refused to accept it, wanting to argue back, wanting to bite him, but every word that left my mouth turned into fragmented sobs. I could only let him do as he pleased. Such severe consequences lasted for several days, and I really couldn't take it anymore. Maple Leaf suggested to me, if it's really unbearable, why not pretend to be drunk? I thought it was a feasible idea. After 2 cups, I was drunk. The intoxication spread wantonly through the hall. I don't know how much time had passed when the hall door was gently pushed open. Familiar footsteps drew near. He took a few steps closer, crouched down in front of me, and spoke in a very soft voice. You have a low tolerance for alcohol. Why did you suddenly start drinking? I was drunk and couldn't answer his question. He chuckled softly. Really drunk? I felt him gently brush the tip of my nose with his finger, the movement as light as a feather. I kept my eyes tightly shut, trying to maintain a steady, even breath so he wouldn't notice anything amiss. He scooped me up into his arms, and laid me gently on the bed. I thought he would leave after doing all this, but clearly, I had underestimated the extent of his beastliness. After passing me water to clean up, he lay down beside me, facing me directly. He was too close, so close that I could faintly sense the sweep of his gaze, as if carrying a tangible warmth. It slowly glided over my lips, the tip of my nose, and finally settled on my brows and eyes. I pretended to be drunk, but he, who hadn't taken a single sip of alcohol, seemed even more intoxicated than I was, calling out to me incessantly, "Empress, Ayuan, my lady." From time to time, he would touch my face, pinch my earlobes, and rub my palms. I fought the urge to open my eyes, unconsciously nuzzling my cheek against the pillow and letting out a vague nasal sound to muddle through. "Little liar," he suddenly cursed me in a low voice. My body stiffened, thinking he had seen through my act of pretending to be drunk. "You've always wanted to know whose portrait I keep hidden in the secret compartment, haven't you? Deceive me one more time, and I will tell you." Every word he spoke was like a stone dropped into the center of a lake, sending ripples through my heart. Does he find it amusing to toy with me? Bitterness and grievance welled up in my heart together. I buried my face deeper into the pillow. A long silence followed. He sighed softly. "Little drunkard," he scolded me again. "You've always wanted to know whose portrait is hidden in my secret compartment, haven't you? I'll tell you. The person in that painting." He paused, his voice lowering, as if lost in a daze of memory. "Made me understand for the first time what it means to be afraid to get close, too close, and I fear I might startle her, too far, and I worry she might feel neglected, even more. I fear that her heart belongs to someone else." His fingertips unconsciously brushed against my earlobe. Later on, he chuckled softly, though there was no joy in that laughter, only a hint of self-mockery. I finally had the chance to keep her by my side, yet I didn't know how to treat her well. Afraid that she would despise the palace, despise